everyone. Welcome to this first community call for Argent X. I'm Julien, I'm one of the three co-founders at Argent, and I think the idea is to run this community call once a month, which is a way for us, to discuss everything Argent X and really focus on developers. All these people we talk to and we try to build Argent X for. We wanted to have a channel to actually let you know, what we're thinking, what we're building, what's coming, and give you an opportunity to ask questions. And so in this first episode, you have the chance to have myself and Ismael, which is the lead product for Argent X. So Ismael, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, well, hi everyone. I'm the product lead at Argent X. I've been here for almost, I think, a bit more than half a year. And yeah, we've been working on exciting stuff these past few months and a lot of stuff coming up.
Cool. So I think we'll first start discussing a bit about the product. I wanted to, maybe you can share with people listening first what has been the focus of the past weeks, because of course there's so many stuff happening on the blockchain. It's usually hard to keep track. There's a lot of stuff that we build in Argent X that are not obvious, not always obviously visible. So can you recap what's been the focus, of the team for the past few weeks?
Sure. So in the past few weeks, and it's something that we've been thinking of for a while now, we've been implementing this big idea that we call the UX overhaul of Argent X, and that involves many different tiny sub-projects, I guess. One of them is a rethinking of the navigation on Argent X, because we saw that a lot of users were the way they were accessing some different parts of the UI wasn't really intuitive, and they were a bit confused by that. So navigation has been a big focus, and yeah, also another part of the UX overhaul has been the loading times. We've been hearing a lot of complaints about loading times and this loading spinner on Argent X, in many different UI flows, and we've been improving that. But one of the focuses has been to make it faster without compromising security. And we've been doing that by implementing other implementations of the same decryption algorithms. And also some UI tweaks, like moving the loading spinners to different parts of the UI and making it feel like it's actually faster. And yeah, also some other stuff that we've been doing is basically redoing how some of the screens look to pack more information in it, and also introducing some subtle animations that just make it way nicer to use. So in the latest update that we're releasing today, well, you guys can see the main screen redesign, the settings, and the activity screen, and that's everything that we can encompass into the UX overhaul project. But there's more screens to come. So
the icon screen, I think, has changed a lot. For me, that was something that was always a bit frustrating, is that there was a lot of space taken by information that wasn't directly relevant to users. And I think the job you've done is great at actually maximizing the space for what is really useful, the amount of assets you have, the tokens, and so on. So for me as a user of Argent X, I think that's great. And the navigation is much more intuitive.
Yeah, for me personally, one of the big issues has always been, even from before I joined Argent, was the placement of the settings wasn't really intuitive, but now it's I guess very clear to access that, and also just navigating settings. And well, we'll talk about the settings section in a bit, but one of the main focus also in the past few weeks has been the support for StarkNet 0.10, which has been quite some work, because there was a lot of changes required in the smart contracts. Basically, the one of the main things before StarkNet 0.10 was the fact that the StarkNet team was subsidizing the account deployment. So basically, you could deploy your account for free on StarkNet, and this is something that's not sustainable in the long run. So what we wanted to achieve was that accounts pay for their own deployment, and this involves a lot of changes in the smart contracts, but also in the UI of Argent X. So the way we ended up. You wanted to mention
maybe just highlighting a bit on that, because I think it's quite important. That means the flow when you create an account has completely changed on Argent X to support 0.10. So now, actually, if you create a new account, we do not yet deploy the smart contract because you need to pay for that. So what we do is that we compute the address counterfactually. So we know exactly where your account will be deployed. And then as a user, you can deploy some funds. And then we bundle the deployment of the account with the first action that you do. So from a user's point of view, it's very, very similar to how it works with the NeoA. You actually don't see that you need to deploy an account, but the prerequisite is that you need to put a little bit of funds on your account to being able to pay for the deployment. But I do believe that under the constraint of account abstraction, the flow is amazingly smooth, and the team has done really a great job to make that work.
Yeah, and in reality, for a user, if prior to this change, the user had to add funds anyways to pay for their first transaction, because a transaction always costs some ETH. The only change here is that they will see this activation fee on top of the network, the regular network fee. So I do think that for a regular user, nothing really changes. Just the fact that they will see that activation fee in their first transaction. So
and that means we can help StarkNet not go bankrupt, or StarkNet go bankrupt in a few weeks.
Exactly. And that's and that's well, according to the Starkware team, one of the reasons why StarkNet was a bit slow in the past few weeks. So now that we've introduced this change, it should with some other changes that they need to do, the network should be way faster.
And by the way, I think there was a message today on StarkNet from Starkware, also on StarkNet, announcing that the next version, I think, which is 0.10.3, if I believe, has been released to integration, and so it will arrive on mainnet in 2 or 3 weeks, somewhere around mid-December. And in that version, the old way of deploying account, which is subsidized by StarkNet, will be deprecated. So that means that all users and everybody should upgrade to these new ways of deploying account. Of course, that does not affect you as people as dApp developers, but I think it's good to know that, again, StarkNet is making progress. For the moment, the 2 ways of deploying account are still supported, but in the next version, only the new one will be supported and the old one will be deprecated.
Yeah, and talking about developers, I also wanted to mention this other big change in 0.10, which is the changes in how smart contracts are declared and deployed. And I'm not sure which version specifically of 0.10 it was, but basically now you need to make a transaction to declare and to deploy smart contracts. And I'm not a smart contract developer, but Julien, you can talk about how much of a pain that is every time we need to test everything. So one big thing that we released today is a section for developer settings, and that one of the first features that we add is a nice flow to declare contract just by inputting the JSON file that you get when compiling a contract, and Argent X calculates the clash hash automatically, and it deploys it in an easy transaction. And I think we have a video about that we can show.
Yeah, just before we go ahead with the video. That's cool. I don't know if you can comment at the same time. I guess we can, but in this video, we really see the old way of doing things, meaning you're using the StarkNet CLI, and since you needed to pay for declare and deploy, that means that you needed to create an account through the CLI, you needed to fund that account through the CLI, and then you could start declaring, and everything had to be done with command line, which was very painful. Personally, I never remember which account I created, so I needed to create a new one every time, which was honestly a struggle. Now, thanks to this new integration, you can do that, as you've seen, through Argent X, and it's literally 2 clicks, uploading your JSON file, putting the parameters, and that's it, sending the transaction. So I do think, I mean, as a developer, that's something that really annoyed me. And every time I had to remember exactly what were the steps. And now with this integration, it's honestly, so much simpler. That it's typically the kind of feature that as a developer, I mean, I push for it because it was like a real pain in the ass. And that really makes my life easier. So I'm really excited about that one. But you mentioned declare. I believe deploy is not implemented yet, right?
It's not, but it's coming soon. We're probably gonna release that next week.
Yeah, and so I see a few questions. So Sean, you're saying that the deploy didn't work. That's why Ismail just mentioned that only declare is supported for now. And Thomas is saying that this is really cool. That's great, but yes, no, for the moment, so you can do that on from any Argent X account and on any network. So through the UI, you choose the network and you choose the account you want to use. But for the moment, of course, you need to pay with ETH. Cool, but I think, I mean, for developers, I can feel the excitement in the chat. And personally, that's one of the features that I'm really, really proud and excited about. And again, I think that shows, what we want to build with Argent X. We really want to focus on developers, and we are developers ourselves. So when we see something that's a pain in our life as a developer, if we can, help fix it with Argent X, that's typically the kind of feature that we want to develop and bring.
Mm-hmm. That's right. But I think it's also worth mentioning that we are, we're also bringing a lot of functionality for end users, because at the end of the day, those are the ones that end up using the dApps. And one thing that we've seen requested a lot, and we're going to introduce very soon, is the swap functionality directly on Argent X. This is one of the things that has been requested for a long time, but now we feel that we find the proper tools to implement it directly on Argent X, and that's coming in the coming weeks.
Very cool, very exciting. So these are I would say, the short-term features. So what people can expect in the next, or the release following the next release, or in 1 or 2 releases from now. Can you share a little bit more about, I would not say the long-term features, but what will be coming, say, in December, until the end of the year, or maybe early January?
So we have a bunch of things planned. One of the things is the improvements in the transaction review screen. Basically, whenever you go to sign a transaction, we have a bunch of things planned for that, like showing you the dApp that you're interacting with, and also making it more clear what assets you're sending and receiving. Basically, just making it or surfacing the information that's more relevant to end users. So we will be doing changes to that. That's one of the things. And other stuff that we're working on and will be implementing in the coming months is stuff that it's already implemented in the smart contract. So stuff like guardians for co-signing and fraud monitoring, or 2FA. That's something that we're working already on, and also stuff like key recovery and all those flows that the smart contract already supports. We'll be working on that. It's not clear that it'll come before the end of the year, but it's definitely coming in the coming months. And as some people might know, this is stuff that we've been planning for a very long time, because these features were there in the smart contract for months already. But yeah, the reality is that you need a lot of infrastructure to actually make them possible, and we're working on that.
Yeah, I think this is really cool because I mean, for those who know me, I'm really bullish on account abstraction, which I think is a key differentiator of the StarkNet ecosystem. But so far on Argent X, we had to build the foundation, so we had to make I would say, a more traditional wallet that's really suitable for developers, in a sense, a MetaMask, but a better MetaMask. And I do believe that we've now reached that point where I personally find Argent X much smoother and much better than MetaMask. And now we can start focusing on what's really unique about StarkNet. There's already a few stuff, of course. We already have multi-calls and a few things that we are already leveraging in the ecosystem. But yes, using that second key that you can have on your contract for co-signing or for key recovery, on-chain recovery, I think is something that's really exciting because I think it will really show the power of what account abstraction can do. So I'm personally very excited about this one.
Definitely. And of course, yeah, the big thing that we'll be working on in the coming months as well is, of course, the regenesis and updating our contracts to Cairo 1.0 and all that stuff. Basically bringing StarkNet to closer to that production grade state, I guess. So yeah, now we can go over to you and maybe explain a bit, if you could, what Cairo 1.0 and what regenesis means to Argent X users.
Yeah, love to. Before that, I see that there's a few questions coming in the chat. Just want to say that there will be a moment where we'll take time to answer these questions. So don't worry, guys. Keep posting them, and then at the end we'll try to answer as much and as many questions as we can. So Cairo 1.0. I mean, the audience is mostly developers, only developers. You all know that's coming. You are all excited about it coming. It was actually published today by the StarkNet team. That's not the final version, but they basically open source the repo, so we can start to have a look and try to understand what it will mean. So Cairo 1.0 is the next iteration of Cairo. I think there's a lot of cool stuff it will bring. One of the things is that it will enable Sierra. And without going into the details, Sierra is a way to prove any transaction, so even proving a failed transaction. And I think that's something that is needed for the security and censorship resistance of the platform. So I think that's one of the main reasons why Cairo 1.0 is coming. But I do think also that they've learned a lot with the past year and a half when StarkNet or Cairo was released. And so I think there will be a lot of good stuff in it. I know that, for example, I believe, again, I haven't had the time to check the doc, but if I remember correctly, there will be native U256, for example. I think there will be a native library for manipulating arrays and stuff like that. So I feel that from developers, it will mean that Cairo 1.0 will be a bit of a higher level language, in a sense, than what Cairo is today. And so hopefully it will make all our lives much simpler. So that's really cool. As you probably all know, again, I'm saying stuff that most of you may know, but just to make it clear, Cairo 1.0 is associated to what people call the regenesis, because of course there are contracts that did not support Sierra, and then there will be new contracts that do support Sierra, and that was incompatible with, StarkNet believed for a while that this would be incompatible, and so we needed to really migrate to a new chain. So from Cairo pre 1.0 to Cairo 1.0, that was the plan up to, I would say, 2 months ago, if I remember correctly, where they found a way, or someone found a way. I don't think it comes from StarkNet, but I do believe it's someone from Software Mention that basically gave them an idea of a way to do this regenesis without changing network. So that means we can all remain on the same StarkNet mainnet that we have today, but we can actually replace the class hash of our contract. So keep the state, keep everything, and just in one transaction replace the class hash of our contract. So what's very important about that, specifically for us builders, it means that what we build today, provided that we will support that migration, will remain after the regenesis. So the state will remain, all the tokens that you have will remain, and it will be very transparent. And for users, for example, users that have a wallet like Argent X, it will be completely seamless. So it will really feel like a normal upgrade, because in a sense, we are just doing an upgrade of the class hash, which is what we do today when we do an upgrade of the contract. Your account is a proxy and you update the implementation. In this case, it will be a different type of upgrade, but it's just an upgrade. So for users, it will be completely seamless, just one transaction to upgrade, and automatically you will be in the new, you will be supporting Kero 1.0, and you will be in the new StarkNet. So the regenesis was something that scared us developers for a long time. I had many discussions with many people in the ecosystem, and it was something that was a bit scary, and we had little visibility. But thanks to the StarkNet people and the guys at Software mentioned, I think they found a very elegant solution, which makes our life much simpler. So there is nothing to be afraid about the regenesis. And in terms of timing, I feel that Kero 1.0, the official version, should be ready at the end of December. At least that's what StarkNet is aiming at. Again, I don't want to, to speak on their behalf, but I do believe that's still the target. And then there will be a transition period where developers will be invited to basically upgrade their contract and move from Kero pre 1.0 to Kero 1.0, and so do that replacement of the class hash. And at the end of that period, they will basically depreciate all contracts and start with a new clean state. So again, for users, there's nothing to do. Just wait for wallets to basically support the migration, and it will be just one click and one upgrade of your Argent X extension. Do make sure, of course, that you come back during the transition period, because you will need to make that transaction, that upgrade, between January to probably end of March. So make sure you open your Argent X wallet at least once. But because you love the product, I'm sure you'll do much more than that. And for dApp developers, make sure you are building and you're developing smart contracts which are either upgradable, or if you're already, I think they have not announced what that method, that upgrade method syscall will look like. But when they do, make sure you support that in your contract. So anyway, today as a dApp developer, the safest thing to do is to probably deploy an upgradable contract, which you can make non-upgradable or immutable after the transition. But again, if you're a dApp developer, that's something to keep in mind. You will need to do that upgrade, so you better plan for it right now. But you have the guarantee that your contracts will keep their state. So if you do that upgrade, everything will be seamless.
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm so happy that this regenesis is happening in such a seamless way, because I remember, I think it was 2 months ago when we were discussing the roadmap for the next few months, that we were just saving a huge chunk of resources just for the big unknown that was how to handle the regenesis, and just the fact that it's going to be so easy for us as well, that gives us a lot of room to dedicate resources to the stuff that really makes user experience better.
Yeah.
So this is super cool. But also I know that we also do a lot of community work in the community libraries on StarkNet, and one of the super interesting things that we're working on is the plugin account. And yeah, I know that you've been working on in this collaborative project with other teams. If you can speak more about that.
Yeah, definitely a great opportunity to chill a bit the plugin account. So the idea actually, I think, came from the Ledger team at the StarkNet hackathon in Amsterdam. This is something that we discussed before, and I think many people were thinking about, but I think they started hacking something around plugin. And the idea is again to kind of push the boundaries of account abstraction, try to understand how far we can go and what kind of new pattern can emerge out of account abstraction when you focus on accounts. And so the guy at Ledger, they kind of did a proof of concept, and then there was a few stuff not working. So I had a lot of chats with Thomas, and then I proposed something, and then kind of out of there, then we started to discuss with Terence from Cartridge, and there was a lot of people interested about the pattern. And so we decided to work on a community project together. The guys from Bricks are involved as well. There's people in the group, there's people from Snapshot as well. And the idea is really to see if we can build an account that is fully configurable and fully modular. So meaning that you can imagine having a base contract and everybody can instantiate or can basically enable or disable plugins. And each plugin may have a different functionality. So for example, you may want to have an extremely secure account and you want it to be a multi-sig. So you can basically enable the multi-sig plugin on your account. Or maybe you want to play games and you want an account that supports session keys, so you can add that plugin. So the idea is that instead of each company or product or making one account, let's have a common base that we all share, so it can be extra secure because we all share the same base. And then let's work on something that is a bit more modular. And so I think that's a very interesting project. What I like about it is the collaboration between the team. Again, it shows how the StarkNet ecosystem works. And I do feel also that it's very important to explore the great tools that we have in our hand. There's a lot of developers in the ecosystem that are exploring in many directions. At Argent, we are focused on wallets and accounts, and so we want to make sure that we explore the design space of accounts with other people. So I mean, if you're interested about that, check on our repo, on our GitHub at Argent Labs. There's a repo I think called StarkNet plugin account or something like that. It's a community project, and feel free to contribute or ask us question about it. I think the more people, the better. Yeah.
I think it's also worth mentioning the fact that Argent X right now currently supports the session keys plugin. So if you're a developer and want to try that out, you can go on developer settings, enable the plugin account, and then you can deploy accounts that support plugins, and then you can add the session key plugin to your account.
Yeah, no, that exactly. We've enabled that as an experimental feature so that people could experiment. The plugin account, the community plugin account, is much more generic because in the one we support in Argent, it was actually done before we started the project, or we decided to all collaborate together, and so it's a bit more Argent focused in the sense that by default you have a plugin with the Argent security, but other than that, the mechanisms are very similar. And I think at some point we will switch from one to the other when the community plugin account is a bit more mature. We're planning to enable that as an experimental feature within Argent X. But yes, if you want to, for example, experiment with session keys and with plugin, you can do that through Argent X. Just go on testnet. It's not supported on mainnet, only on testnet, and then you can go in your settings, and there's a developer mode and an experimental feature, if I remember correctly, and you can enable plugins there. So it's a good way to give it a try. Definitely. Cool. I think we've been rambling for 30 minutes. Is there any other topic you wanted to discuss, Ismail, or maybe we can turn to?
No, not really. Well, there's some stuff to mention, but we can mention that after the taking on some questions. Okay.
Cool. So I see a question from Sean. What's the reason to declare a class hash myself as a developer? Well, if you build a new smart contract for whatever your dApp, before you can deploy that smart contract, you need to declare it. That's the way StarkNet works. So you can think of it as the class of your contract. So you need to declare that to StarkNet, and then you can instantiate, you can make instances of or deploy instances of that class. So every time you create a new smart contract, you need to declare it. So that's the reason why you need to declare a class hash. Well, you need to declare a class, and that gives you the class hash, the hash of the class that you can then use to deploy an instance of.
All right. Also from Sean, which swap is going to be supported? So this is something that we're going to announce next week. But yeah, I can say that the long-term approach to this is to implement a service or an aggregator that aggregates many services into one. But we will start in the coming weeks with just one provider that we're gonna announce next week.
So I see a question from Thomas, when better multi-call. So for those who don't know, today on Argent X and in the generic interface of the account, there is a plain multi-call, meaning that every transaction is a multi-call, but it's in a sense, it's a dumb multi-call. You just do one call after the other, and they are not really coupled in the sense that you cannot use the output of one call as the input of the next call. And so Thomas has been playing around with that and had the great idea and made a proof of concept on how to better chain your call, and he called it a better multi-call. So the idea is to really being able to say, I'm doing a first call, and then I take the second output of that first call, and I use it as the third input of the next call. And so you can now start to make a multi-call, which is much smarter, and where each call can depend for one from the other. And so the question, when better multi-call? So to be honest, I don't know. I haven't been following that as closely as I should. I do feel there are people mentioning to build that as a plugin. I've also seen some discussion on Shaman between you and Jacob, I believe, Thomas. I would love to have better multi-call, but without changing the interface of the execute method of the account. So using the call data as it is today and being able to leverage that. I don't know if you found a solution for that. If you have, that's fantastic. If you have not, I do feel that maybe that's an open discussion that we should have, and maybe make the execute method a bit less structured, so that people can start experimenting with more different multi-call implementation. But as a feature, I think that's definitely something that we should have, because it will enable yet more use cases and push the border of account abstraction even further. So really excited to make that work. But at the moment, I can't give you a when date for sure. But happy to continue the discussion.
All right. So for company purpose, do you plan to create account with role-based access control system management?
Yeah. So at the moment, no. So again, you can imagine something like that coming as a plugin. So I would invite you to go to the plugin repo, and as an issue, you can suggest that and say, this is something that would be interesting. Is it coming to Argent? No, I can say that for the moment, no. We have other products that we are playing or considering, building related to Argent X, and a bit more focused on companies, but not much to say at this point. And finally, to Sean, you had the last message. So again, typically you declare a class type, as I said, of a new contract. So if you're building a dApp, you compile a new code, a new Cairo contract, and then that will produce a JSON file, and that's the file that you should use. So of course, you should not declare the Argent class again, but it's really something for builders, right? If you make a new smart contract, that's a way to being able to deploy instance of that contract later. Okay, I think that's it for the questions. So before we wrap up, you mentioned there was a few things you wanted to mention, Ismail, sorry.
Yeah, so two closing thoughts or messages. One is that we're going to be at StarkNet CC India next week. So it's going to be me and Drew from the Argent X development team. And yeah, if you're there, ping us. We really want to talk with developers and know how we can make Argent X better for you. And also in the topic of feedback, we are running calls with one-to-one calls to gather user feedback as well. So if you would like to complain about how Argent X works today, you can go on our Discord, and there's one message on the announcements channel, and you can book a call with us to to let us know how we can improve. And that's it from me. Not sure if you, Julien, want to add anything.
No, I think that's all for me. Well, thank you all for listening. If you have more questions, or there's something that we didn't answer, feel free to reach out on Twitter, on Telegram, on Discord. Happy to discuss. And if not, well, hopefully we'll see you all on the next community call, probably in a month.
All right.
Cool.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.